जून 1674 मध्ये शिवाजी महाराज यांचा राज्याभिषेक झाला रायगडला. त्यानिमित्ताने आज आपल्याकडे एक खूप विशेष असा एक पाहुणा आलाय, ज्याचं नाव आहे रोहन ठाणेदार. आणि त्याचं मुख्य विशेषतः असं आहे की तो अमेरिकेत जन्माला आला, अमेरिकेत शिकला आणि आता अमेरिकेत जॉब करतोय. परंतु त्याचं शिवाजी महाराजांचं नॉलेज एवढं दांडगं की कधी कधी वाटतं की बहुतेक अनेक भारतीय मुलांना, त्याच्या बरोबरीच्या मुलांना कदाचित एवढं नॉलेज नसेल. तर रोहन, वेलकम टू माय चॅनल आणि तुमचं सगळ्यांचं पण बोलता विषयमध्ये स्वागत. सो रोहन, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन.
Thank you very much, Mashi. Yeah, it's a great honor.
So first question, you born and brought up in USA, right? तर मग तू शिवाजी महाराजांचं वाचायला कसं काय घेतलंस? एकदम इंटरेस्ट कसा आला तुला?
Yes, that's a good question. खरं म्हणजे माझा बाबा म्हणजे प्रमोद. It's thanks to him, thanks to my dad. I think he is kind of a natural teacher. He likes to, share knowledge, and he's also a history buff, you can say. And so in the beginning, we started with the books that are meant for Lahan Mule, Mula Mule Manje, these Sulabh, Ramayan, Sulabh, Mahabharat. And so we didn't start with Maratha history or Shivaji Maharaj's history initially. We started with any book that I could read. And then once I got a little more confident and better at reading, then we were able to move coincidentally to just read about Shivaji Maharaj. And he's such an interesting historical figure. And me and my dad, we have a great liking for history that I think at that point we decided that we need to just focus on this period in history and kind of learn about that. The long story short is every night, me and my dad, we read a history book, 30 minutes on the phone. And this is both to help me learn the Marathi language, but also, to learn about this great historical figure. Shivaji Maharaj, he's just a character with so many good virtues that he would be worth studying because you can learn so much from him.
कोणत्या वर्षापासून तू शिकायला सुरुवात केली शिवाजी महाराजांविषयी?
हो, 18 वर्षांपासून. म्हणजे मी 2019 मध्ये युनिव्हर्सिटी ऑफ मिशिगन मधून ग्रॅज्युएट झाला. आणि मग मी शिकागोला मूव्ह केलो. And so basically, kind of to keep in touch with my parents as sort of an excuse to get on the phone, a few times a week and talk with them and stay in touch. It's been since 2019. We'll talk maybe at least 3 or 4 times a week, 30 minutes each time. But since then, it's now 2026. You can say 7 years we've been kind of learning about this history.
कॉलेजला गेल्यापासून, I guess, right?
Oh.
कॉलेजला गेलो. ओके. अँड फोनवर तुम्ही अर्धा तास डिस्कस करता शिवाजी महाराजांचं. सो you have Shivaji Maharaj books or you just use internet information?
Yes, that's a good question. So this is a continuous question. Generally, we have real books, paper books, and I will be reading it here, and I'll have my phone on speakerphone, kind of, and so verbally I will read some text from that book, and then kind of I have to try to translate it, but then my baba, if I can't translate it or I don't know a certain shabda, I can ask him, and we will kind of work together sentence by sentence to create that meaning. There are certain books that we had researched, like one book that we really liked is called Agryahun Sutka, and it's by, I think, this may be Ajit Joshi or someone else, but this, I think, is another very good one. Let me see if I can get the resolution better. This is the Solstice at Panipat. And this is by Uday Kulkarni. Yeah.
Is it in Marathi?
Yes, yeah. So this book is in Marathi. And the cool thing with this is we actually had both copies. We were able to side by side have the English copy and the Marathi copy. So this actually is a borrowed book from one of our friends, Chetan Rege in Chicago. He actually runs a weekly Itihas Munch kind of Zoom meeting, you can say. as part of the Chicago Marathi Mandar, and so he has a vast library. He's also kind of an enthusiast. But we have here's a few we haven't really read yet. Here's Sardar Bhagat Singh, actually. So we may have started this. So we actually have many books that are also not related to Shivaji Maharaj, but we haven't started yet because we're so interested in Shivaji. But
So it's not limited to Shivaji Maharaj. I think you learned about Bhagat Singh too, right? Bhagat
oh
Singh.
yeah. So there's a theme of these freedom fighters, I think, or even social reformers. We've read about Anand One, which is kind of the project of
Okay.
yes, yeah, Baba Amte, and kind of the philanthropy and social work and activism that was done there. We've read the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, not the full work, but they've kind of made a 100-page Sulabh edition for children. So yeah, actually, it took, I said we've been reading since 2019, but really it may have taken until 2020 or 2021 for my reading comprehension and understanding to become advanced enough to then start reading these history books.
So you can read Marathi?
Yes, yeah, I can read Marathi, and if you'd like, I can even, just as a sample maybe for the viewers, I can read a sentence out of like this Panipat book, like Marathyan Dilli Darbaratle Pratinidhi Doghe Jan Hote. So I can read pretty decently. Thank you.
आणि तू लिहू पण शकतो, I think.
Oh, but I don't get enough practice with writing. म्हणजे लिहू शकतो, पण खूप काय म्हणायचं, it'll be very slow and it won't be kind of natural.
So let's
Thank you.
go back to our history question. तर तू एवढी पुस्तकं वाचलीत हिस्ट्रीची, म्हणजे एखादा असा प्रसंग आहे का तू पुस्तकामध्ये, किंवा असं एक व्यक्तिमत्व आहे का, पर्सनॅलिटी आहे का जी तुला अशी खूप भावली की वा व्हॉट अ ग्रेट पर्सनॅलिटी. आय नो यू लर्न लॉट अबाउट शिवाजी महाराज, बट बिसाइड शिवाजी महाराज आणखीन कोणी असे आहेत का की ज्यांचे तुला खूप आवडले, किंवा त्यांच्याविषयी तू आणखीन अभ्यास विचार करतो की आणखीन शिकायचंय मला याविषयी?
हो, नक्कीच. एक नाव मला आठवलं आत्ताच, आणि त्याचं नाव म्हणजे बाहिरजी नाईक. And so this is the spy chief of Shivaji Maharaj, and he was kind of his intelligence officer. So I think you may have heard that Shivaji Maharaj, he was never betrayed by any of his subordinates in his entire lifetime. And that was, a big accomplishment. And part of this is he had the intelligence advantage. He always knew what his enemies were up to. He knew what his neighbors were up to. And the reason for that is he had this spy network, and he would send them all out, and they would be just looking like farmers. They would even be part of the enemy army encampment sometimes, or they would be the porter. And so Bahirji Naik, he was kind of this spy-like figure that I think was very instrumental to Shivaji Maharaj's success. You think of certain events like the Afzal Khan Wad, which occurred kind of early on in Shivaji Maharaj's story. And a critical detail there is we know that Shivaji Maharaj used the Waghanaka to kind of disembowel and kill Afzal Khan. And partially he was able to do this because he knew Afzal Khan was not wearing body armor. And how did he know that? Is that he had a spy in Afzal Khan's camp. And so I don't know if that was specifically Bahirji Naik or somebody else, but they probably reported to him. And so I haven't done enough research into him. Maybe there's a book that I can find about Bahirji Naik, but he's one very interesting figure. Or even Aurangzeb himself. He was an evil man, you can say, but he was also a brilliant, crafty, clever personality. At that time, of course, we know the Mughal tradition was you had to fight with your brothers and kill all of your brothers to become the Mughal emperor. And so, we can dislike people like Aurangzeb or the Nizam, but you have to respect them for being such kind of extraordinary figures in their own right.
So since we are talking about Rajabhishek, that is coronation, I would like to ask you another question, की तुझ्या मते राज्याभिषेकला म्हणजे कोरोनेशनला एवढा इम्पॉर्टन्स का दिलं गेलं इतिहासामध्ये, हिस्ट्रीमध्ये?
Yes, that's a great question. I think in part it's kind of a taking back of the power in the Dakhan and in this area of India that you could say had been overrun by outsiders, especially in Shivaji's own view. Definitely, he thought the Mughals were outsiders trying to now encroach south of the Narmada into Deccan. But even these Deccani sultanates, like the Adil Shahi, etc., they were kind of imposing their will on the local people. And, of course, when you're being subjected to that, you're just thinking of surviving. So for the first time, someone like Shivaji Maharaj was able to come along and question that standard. I think it was kind of a reversal of the high status practices at the times and bringing back the tradition that had not been seen for hundreds of years. As I understand it, the Chhatrapati title, had to kind of be resurrected, and some of the traditions and the oaths had to be recreated almost from nothing because they'd almost been lost, basically. And I think it was a statement. Initially, I agree. I didn't understand what the big deal was. Okay, so he got a title change. He goes from a king to Chhatrapati. What's the big deal, right? But it was also a matter of recognition, of pride, you can say. I think Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor, he never called Shivaji Maharaj a king. He called him, a landlord or a landlord's son, and basically didn't want to give him that credit that you're royalty or anything like that. So I think it was a lot to do with the legitimacy and sending a message that this Hindavi Swarajya was meant to last beyond Shivaji Maharaj himself. Shivaji Maharaj, he wanted this to be kind of truly elevating and serving the people. And so you can almost call this Swarajya that was formed almost like the modern democracy. Of course, it doesn't have the voting and the direct representation, but it was meant to be in service of the people and the citizens instead of for the king.
पण ते जेव्हा त्यांचा राज्याभिषेक झाला तेव्हा त्यांनी हिंदवी स्वराज्य, स्पेसिफिकली ही सेड हिंदवी स्वराज्य, राईट? सो फॉर यू, व्हॉट डू यू थिंक, व्हॉट्स इज द मिनिंग ऑफ हिंदवी स्वराज्य? राईट, कारण हिंदवी म्हणजे हिंदू असं ते म्हणत होते की पूर्ण भारत, इंडिया त्यांना इन्क्लुडेड करायचं होतं, की तुला काय वाटतं?
Yeah, I think the Hindavi Swarajya is almost like that immune response being forced to develop, and using someone like Shivaji Maharaj as its instrument to say that, we still, despite all of the suffering that we have incurred and all of the injustices that we faced, still we don't want to do the same oppression back to anybody else. But we will stand up for our right to exist and practice our, religion in the way that we see fit. So I think it's actually the Hindavi Swarajya, the meaning is really restraint, patience that maybe their adversaries didn't deserve, right? You could say that you will do this to me, I'll do the same back to you. And it's not that this is going to be restoring some natural order where the Hindus are on top, but just that this will be more of a population with a backbone instead of being divided and conquered so easily. Now they're saying that we're going to stand together and at least represent our own interests, because we now know that there are people who wish to do us harm. So we need to kind of change the way that we operate.
तू शिवाजी महाराजांचा अभ्यास करताना तुला असं एक सरप्राइझिंग काय वाटलं, की तू इमॅजिन पण केलं नव्हतं की अरे असं पण होऊ शकतं, असं काही तुला वाचताना जाणवलं का? शिवाजी महाराजांचं जे पुस्तकं वाचत होता किंवा इतिहास, हिस्ट्री इन जनरल जेव्हा तू स्टडी करत होतास?
Yeah, let me think. One off the top of my head, everyone knows of the Agriahun Sutka story, where the popular version is that Shivaji hid in a box of sweets, and he was kind of shipped out and smuggled from there. So I think that's one example you can say. He was a big follower, or he displayed great mastery of the teachings of Chanakya, the Ganimikawa developments. He wouldn't face his enemies on the open plain battlefield. He had the advantage of kind of having these forts in the Sahyadri mountains. So I think his childhood and upbringing, it's a great example of preparation meeting opportunity. So you can say, of course, he had some good luck, but he took such large risks. And I think the Afzal Khan Wad, let's look at, he was 29 years old when that took place. He was counted out by everybody, including his own kind of court. And they said, don't go one-on-one meeting with this guy. Afzal Khan, he's a big, strong giant of a man, and he was feared all throughout India, and he had to make these decisions at a pretty young age that were so life or death and monumental. And even before that, even 10 years before that, he made a pact with his friends. I think one of them was the Bahirji Naik, the spy chief. And they made a blood oath and they said, we are going to establish Swarajya. This is a group of teenagers. Today, these people, we'd have them taking college classes. And here they're kind of forming the seeds of an empire, you can say. So I think I'm just I'm shocked at how consistently Shivaji Maharaj doubles down and bets on himself and his ideas and his friends, and they work together to make the impossible possible. So I think having that vision is a gift, and having the ability to execute on it. And then all of these forces coming together in one individual. His father was Shahaji Raje. He'd been granted this Jagir of the Pune area. And then he was raised by his mother, Jizabai, who was also an amazing woman, and Dadoji Gondeo, who's there to kind of give him support and guidance. And, today, to make an imperfect comparison, but Usain Bolt, he's the fastest runner in the world, he's like a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James. He's just one of these freaks of nature that he has all these perfect qualities that come together at the perfect time and place in history to change the course of history. So that's kind of a cop out because I'm just saying his whole life is so interesting, but it really is.
It is definitely interesting. So seems like you learned a lot about Chanakya too.
So I haven't read his book, although I did find it on Amazon, and I've been thinking of ordering it, but I think it's very long, so I'll need to dedicate some time to it. But music video, I think of a course that's taught in the United States at the West Point Military Academy. And so they have in their curriculum many lectures that point to these lessons of Chanakya, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's a principle from Chanakya. Or strategic mobility, I think they focus in on, which then, later Marathas would also use to their advantage. So I think, yes, you can say that Shivaji, he was both a student of Chanakya's tactics, but also he displayed mastery of them. He was kind of the textbook definition. If I go in a dictionary and I want to see how the principles of Chanakya can be applied, I'll just see a history of Shivaji's kind of events, like with the Afzal Khan Wad. I think there's like a Sama, Dama, Danda, Bhed, which is like diplomacy, and then a few other things before progressing to violence. So he tricked Afzal Khan and he said, let's have a meeting. Instead of saying, let's fight, from the beginning, he kind of lures him in and he plays a clever game. He doesn't give in to these emotional kind of reasons. Like Afzal Khan wanted to lure him out by destroying the Bhavani Mata kind of temples and the other temples at Pandharpur. And Shivaji Maharaj, he kind of kept his cool and he didn't stray from these principles. And he was under immense stress. I think at that time his wife Saibai had passed away as well. And basically, instead of falling apart, he stayed cool, which is difficult to do because we can read these principles, but to actually apply them under pressure, that's the difficult part.
Shivaji Maharaj's movements, they were politically, are those political movements or religious movements? More political or religious?
That's a good question. I think, of course, I think religion was very important in the life of Shivaji Maharaj. You can say actually that he relied on his prayers, his pre-battle rituals, I think, to Bhavani Mata or other kind of divine sources. That being said, so I want to establish, I think, that he did have a deep respect and foundation in the Hindu tradition. I don't think he was such a calculated politician that he was using it as maybe like a tool to gain power or establish some uniformity throughout his kingdom. So I think he was kind of, he wanted to respect the tradition and promote the tradition, but he was also kind of a progressive and secular personality, I think you can say. One example is when his father died and then his mother wanted to do the sati, which Shivaji Maharaj didn't want, and so he prevented her. He said, no, you're not going to do this. This is this old, outdated ways. I think he also truly wanted to be fair to the people under his rule. He felt a real responsibility and sense of stewardship. He wanted those people to prosper. So even on the administrative front, I think the tax regime that he instituted was meant to be fair and not exploitative. But I would say if I had to pick one, I think it was less of the religion, you could say.
So, more politics. That's
Yes.
what. Okay. आता तू एवढं वाचलं शिवाजी महाराजांविषयी अँड ऑल ह्युमन्स दे मेक अ मिस्टेक्स राईट. तर तू एवढं वाचल्यानंतर तुला असं असं कुठे वाटलं की आता तू नवीन जनरेशनचा आहे तर तुझी विचार करण्याची पद्धत पण थोडीशी वेगळी आहे, तर तुला आता आता हे सगळं वाचल्यानंतर तुला असं कुठे वाटतं का की हे बरोबर नाही केलं शिवाजी महाराजांनी किंवा किंवा वेगळ्या पद्धतीने करायला हवं होतं?
I think immediately I can say no, but I want to clarify that. I think if I can critique, I won't say it's because Shivaji Maharaj never did anything, bad or objectionable in his life, but I think us Indians and us Marathi people, we are very proud and dogmatic, you can say. So I think even if there was some fact that could be revealed, one, it may be difficult to kind of expose or popularize that. So that's just one suspicion I have, is that all of my knowledge of Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas, it's been filtered through kind of this complex of the population.
Actually, I don't want to ask you what mistakes he made. I should say की ह्या डिसिजन ऐवजी त्यांनी हे डिसिजन अशा तऱ्हेने घेतलं असतं तर जास्त चांगलं होतं असतं. यु नो व्हॉट आय मीन? ऑफकोर्स मिस्टेक इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू टॉक अबाउट हिज मिस्टेक्स, आय नो.
Yes, yeah.
पण तरी आत्ताचं आपण जे पॉलिटिक्स बघतो, आत्ताचं जे आपण रिलिजन विषयी जे काही चाललंय ते बघतो, तर त्याच्यामध्ये समजा तू शिवाजी महाराजांची विचारसरणी म्हणजे रिलिजन अँड पॉलिटिक्स आणि आत्ताच हे सगळं, तर त्याच्यामध्ये हे बघितलं तुला असं वाटतं का की आता जसे वागतात हे पॉलिटिशियन किंवा आता जसे धर्माविषयी चाललंय, तर त्यावेळेला ह्याच्या हेच समजा तिकडे झालं असतं तर पूर्ण हिस्ट्री एवढी झाली नसती किंवा हे युद्ध वाचलं असतं वगैरे, असं कधी वाटतं का तुला वाचल्यावर? किंवा तू पानिपत पण वाचलंय?
Yeah. I think since you mentioned Panipat, that's definitely one place where you can point to many, many decisions that if any one of those had been, fixed, you can say that maybe the Maratha history would be even more impressive or would have continued their hegemony for a longer period of time. So I think you can say that. But I would like to think actually, because I think that's interesting. In Shivaji's lifetime, is there anything where I can consider an alternative that would lead to some interesting result? I think in the Agriahun Sutka tale, I always said, I was like, no, don't go up to Agra. Don't, go to the Mughal territory. It's dangerous. That's what we think right now. And of course, we know how the story ends, so that influences us. But easily, Shivaji Maharaj or Sambhaji could have been killed or, captured for longer during that journey. So I always thought, why even go? And the kind of period before that, Shivaji has some battles with Mirza Raje Jai Singh, who's a Rajput king, vassal king, who represents Aurangzeb. And so he's kind of put under the thumb of Mirza Raje, and he has to go to Agra, basically. Aurangzeb insists on it, Mirza Raje insists on it, and he's in kind of a weaker position at this time. And so he has to go. And this is a thought from other historians that I've studied, I've heard, is sometimes we think this. We think, hey, why did you do this? This seems like such an obvious alternative course. You can win-win or save yourself or save others. And I like what this guy says. He says, what we have is only the history that came down to us. So we have, some Bukhars, we have some texts, we have this English guy, Thomas Mostyn. He was posted in Pune, so he wrote a lot of documents. But we're piecing together this history from just the few documents that we have available at this time. And so I think if we were to go back, and I don't have an example here, but if we were to go back and ask Shivaji Maharaj or Nizam or Aurangzeb, hey, why didn't you do this instead of this? It seems like a no-brainer. they would say, well, of course I would do that if it weren't for this. And so I think in most of those cases, there's probably some uh, extenuating circumstance that just hasn't been passed down to us. No one wrote about it. Maybe it was so obvious they thought, why should we write about this? Everyone knows this. Not during the lifetime of Shivaji Maharaj, not during Sambhaji's lifetime, but during the latter days of the empire after Panipat or before Panipat, if the empire hadn't overextended itself to the point where these outsiders like the English or the Portuguese could take that foothold, then I think you could have a very different India today, and maybe that you could have that unbroken line of Swarajya, you can call it, from Shivaji Maharaj to whatever that democracy would look like today in India. Of course, now it's been there since 1948, but imagine if you hadn't had that missing 100-year period or 150-year period where the English were kind of hegemonic. So yeah.
Must be a very difficult question, actually. But the answer.
Thank you.
Now I can ask you easier question. तर तू शिवाजी महाराजांचं एवढं वाचल्यानंतर व्हॉट डू यू थिंक की तुझ्यामध्ये भारतीय संस्कृती बघण्याचा म्हणजे किंवा इंडियन हेरिटेज जे आपण बघतो त्याच्याकडे बघण्याचा दृष्टिकोन तुझा चेंज झाला का? त्याचा ओके, यू अंडरस्टूड द क्वेश्चन, राईट?
Yeah, I think so. How did my view of Indian history maybe change or get updated? Yes, yeah. So I think this is very difficult. I think to be an Indian American, growing up in America, born in America, people expect you to know about the Indian history. But unless, your parents are teaching you, where are you going to know about this history? So I think I say that to mean that it was kind of a blank slate for me, as in, I didn't start with a good foundation of knowledge about the history of India. So when I was in elementary school here as a child, I didn't know that the Mughals, were ruling over India for a long time. I didn't really know that, or that they were Muslim. I didn't know about the religious divides or the oppression. Let alone, the Maratha kingdom. I didn't know about the Marathas or Shivaji Maharaj. And actually, there's some embarrassing stories there. Like, I think we had a show and tell in 4th grade. And so I brought in some small, like, marble, just one of those mortar and pestles that I think my Ai, she had gotten at the Taj Mahal, when she was a child. So we still have this little marble mortar and pestle. And I brought that in for show and tell. And I told the story. I said, yes, she got it when she visited the Taj Mahal. So my teacher, she's an American lady. She said, oh, what is the Taj Mahal? Just explain to the class. I didn't know what the Taj Mahal was. Of course, it's the tomb for the wife of Shah Jahan, right? And he's a Mughal. So I said, oh, it's a palace. I don't know. But there's a Pakistani kid in class. And he said, no, this is a tomb, and I guess, I don't know, he somehow knew more about the history. And so I was just feeling so embarrassed. Wow, I don't even know, my own history. And so there's a few more events like this. Like in middle school, then you learn about like the caste system, right? And at least I think the Marathi people are very progressive. My parents had never even mentioned a whisper. I didn't know what caste was. I didn't know what caste we were. I didn't know anything about this. I think it's a little embarrassing. You go to school and your American friends ask you like, hey, what do you know about this? And I don't know what to tell them, right? So I think I just really want to emphasize that just because you're an Indian American, if you're born in America, there's no foundation given to you or provided. You're on your own, So I think India, especially by Americans, and that includes by myself as an Indian American, I think that's the number one change that I've learned throughout all of my kind of history lessons, is that India is a very big and very diverse place, and that it's only because we're now in America that we have to kind of squish down the concept of India to this small box, right? And say, okay, this is India. But India it can be a whole world by itself, you can say. So I think I've gotten a little off track from the question, but that is maybe one thing that has most surprised me, is that we are one of many different cultures in India. The Marathi people, our affinity for this Maratha empire, you can call it. We obviously think that's very important, and it is.
So एवढं सगळं वाचल्यानंतर तुला काय वाटतं की शिवाजी महाराजांकडून असं काय शिकलं जाऊ शकतं की जे आत्ता तुझ्या जनरेशनला खूप उपयोगी होऊ शकतं, इव्हन आत्ता सुद्धा तुम्ही तेच प्रिन्सिपल तुम्ही आत्ताच्या जगामध्ये वापरू शकता. असं तुला काही वाटतं का शिवाजी महाराजांविषयी?
Yeah, absolutely. His examples of great planning acumen and strategic planning, all those things should be studied for sure. And maybe also that it's okay to let people underestimate you sometimes, and to use this diplomacy strategy instead of maybe outright violence. Or in our modern world, let's say you're in a meeting at work, and someone says something that you don't like or you feel is an insult. Instead of exploding and yelling at them, maybe you can think like Shivaji Maharaj would, and by extension how Chanakya would, and come out with a better outcome for yourself. So I think Shivaji Maharaj is among the best role models, and that's the reason why I think our culture has placed him on such a high pedestal, because he's useful. So,
हाऊ अबाउट यू? तुला स्वतःला असं तू काही चेंज केला का तुझ्यामध्ये शिवाजी महाराजांचं सगळं वाचल्यानंतर, की ओ यस हे हा गुण माझ्यात सुद्धा आणायचा आहे?
I think I'll answer it in my own unique way. We live in a very different world today, right? We're not, thankfully, it's a much safer world, and no one's really at threat of being like oppressed militarily, or being attacked. And so that's good. I wouldn't say I've done a great job at it yet, but I would like to continue to try and learn maybe leadership lessons from Shivaji Maharaj. How do you, treat people so well and know what to say where you're never betrayed, in these life and death struggles. There's a quote, this old quote. It's, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders telling them you have to do this. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. So if you have a vision, kind of, if you can get people to buy into your vision. So Shivaji Maharaj's vision was the Swarajya, the Hinduvi Swarajya. And so he's telling other people, don't fight for me because I'm your king. Fight for this vision. And he kind of put that vision into their head. And that was also, I think, a big part of it.
खरंच खूप कौतुकास्पद आहे की तू अमेरिकेत राहून सुद्धा शिवाजी महाराजांविषयी एवढं वाचतोय. नॉट ओनली शिवाजी महाराज, आय थिंक तू बाकीच्या पण हिस्टॉरिकल फिगर्स विषयी पण बरंचसं वाचतोय. पण तू इंडियात गेल्यावर मग शिवाजी महाराजांच्या बरेचसे गड तू बघितलेस, राईट? सिंहगड, आय थिंक प्रतापगड, रायगड.
Yes, yeah, Raigad, and Sumagad, you'd said.
त्या जागेवर जाऊन तुला असं छान वाटलं का, की काही असं फिलिंग आलं का, की वाव, इथे शिवाजी महाराज बसले होते, असं काही वाटलं तुला?
Oh, yes, yeah. I think maybe two occasions I can point to. The first Maratha fort I visited was Sumagad, so outside of Pune. And I think we know the story of, I think it was Danaji Malusare, the Sumha, and like he promised Jizabai he's going to win back this fort. And so he leads the army up the steep side of Sumagad, basically up a cliff. And so when you go to the top of Sumagad, you see the kind of cliff face that they were supposed to have come up. And I thought to myself, what in the world? Why? How could you do this crazy attack in the middle of the night and have any hope? Yeah, hope, kasakela. And so that is one thing, that I thought, is that these people just had amazing courage while either defending or trying to capture these forts. And then also, I think Raigad was very, very cool and worth visiting. And I think it was the eventual capital fort of Shivaji Maharaj. I think he moved from Rajgad to Raigad or back at some point. And Raigad is very impressive. It's very large on the top. I think they had an elephant on top of Raigad. And so they say, how did you bring this full-sized elephant on top of Raigad? They actually brought two elephants when they were still calves or babies, and they grew up on the Raigad and they never leave. So I thought that was amazing. And I think maybe Pratapgarh was also very special, because that's where the Afzal Khan Wad occurred. And so that you just feel the history that this is where Shivaji was getting ready for the most intense fight of his life. And, it was so dangerous. And the jungle around Wai is so dense. Even today, the roads are bad. And part of the story is that, these Afzal Khan's army, they had to march single file, one by one, through this dense forest. Even today, the forest by car, there's a very bad road. So you just think that, if it were me and I went back in time and someone forced me to join their army, I'd say, oh, no way, just kill me now. I don't want to do any of this. So it's just amazing to me the type of people that, and they're the same people, that they were just forced to adapt and live in this extreme way. So I just have the utmost respect for how they were able to live and survive. Yeah.
So hope you'll share me more about Shivaji Maharaj and other characters, and maybe we can have another interview. I hope you enjoy it too.
Yes, no, thank you for inviting me. I loved it, and this was a lot of fun. And yeah, maybe we can find another topic and do it again sometime. I would love it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.